we can continue to fight for freedom, reach new audiences, and bring important information to the public free of charge. This is not possible without your generosity. Join our quest for the truth and our freedom and donate today, telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.
For The World Today, this is James O'Neill. Ukrainian drone and missile strikes knocked out power and heating in Russia's Voronezh and Belgorod regions, local officials reported Sunday. Fires and blackouts followed as Russia claimed to have intercepted 44 drones overnight. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha accused Moscow of endangering nuclear safety, saying Russian strikes targeted substations supplying power to their nuclear power plants. Kyiv called for an emergency IAEA meeting. The attacks come amid stalled U.S.-led peace efforts and escalating energy warfare, with both nations targeting infrastructure as winter approaches and Russia reiterating demands for recognitions of its interests. President Trump announced plans to distribute $2,000 checks to most Americans, funded by tariff revenues his administration collected. He said high-income earners would be excluded, though no threshold was given. President Trump claimed tariffs have generated trillions and would help pay down the $37 trillion U.S. debt. His declaration follows a Supreme Court challenge over his use of emergency powers to impose tariffs on nearly all nations. While the U.S. collected $151 billion between April and October, the legality of continuing tariffs and Trump's ability to deliver on his pledge remains uncertain. Nearly half of Germans now feel unsafe in public spaces, nearly double the share since the 2015 migrant crisis, according to a new Deutschland Trend poll. The survey of 1,300 voters found 48% feel uneasy in parks, streets, or transit, with concerns higher among women. Though most fear theft or harassment over terrorism, public confidence has sharply eroded since mass migration policies began. Government data link migrants to 2.8 million crimes since 2015. The anti-immigration AfD party has surged in polls, leading nationally with 26% amid growing frustration with establishment policies. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage is now Britain's most trusted political figure on economic management, according to one opinion poll, showing 34% trust him to fix the economy. By contrast, only 24% trust Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and 19% trust Chancellor Rachel Reeves, as Labour faces growing criticism over rising taxes and stagnant growth. Farage has called for ending mass migration, boosting domestic energy production, and cutting subsidies to Chinese-linked green projects. His Reform UK party leads national polls at 33%, while majorities of Britons want Starmer and Reeves to resign amid worsening financial confidence. British counter-terror police have launched an investigation into alleged Chinese interference at Sheffield Hallam University, which reportedly halted Uyghur forced labor research under pressure from CCP officials. Professor Laura Murphy's study was suspended after staff faced intimidation and insurers withdrew coverage over defamation concerns. Internal emails revealed fears that angering Beijing could jeopardize Chinese student recruitment, a key income source. The university later apologized and reinstated the project, affirming its commitment to academic freedom. Authorities are investigating potential violations of the National Security Act, involving foreign intelligence assistance amid rising scrutiny of China's influence in UK academia. Devin Nunes spoke about the questions surrounding J.P. Morgan's debanking of Trump media during the secret Arctic frost investigation.
So the back and forth that happened between the Department of Justice, what was the reason for the subpoena, who did they talk to at J.P. Morgan, because we know at that time we were going back at J.P. Morgan saying, look, this sure looks political, and then after this going on for months, then right when the damage could be maximized against our company, right when we were going public, what does J.P. Morgan do? They debank us. And I've seen Jamie Dimon and others at J.P. Morgan say this over and over again, that they don't debank people for political reasons. Well, then why the hell did you debank Trump media?
We'll be back with another news break at the top of the next hour. This has been James O'Neill for The World Today.
With your help, we can continue.
Did you know they plan to build over 3,000 wind turbines on Queensland's Great Dividing Range? Over 3,700 kilometres of new haulage roads will carve through old-growth forest. Destroying forests for industrial renewables makes no sense. It doesn't have to be this way. The intact biodiverse ranges of Queensland are no place for renewables. Take 2 minutes to learn the truth about the destruction they cause. Go to rainforestreserves.org.au.
They're just wiping farming families off the map.
We produce some of the best crops worldwide, so why would you want to take that away?
If they mine this land, it will be lost forever.
This is the Donald Mineral Sands mine site, so they plan to dig this land down to about 25 metres deep. And yeah, the road we're standing next to here will be mining trucks and traffic for the next 30, 40 years.
When farmers speak up, we should listen. They know our land, they've farmed it for 150 years. So why is no one hearing them when they say,
don't destroy it, because once it's gone, it's gone.
Ryan Milgate will soon see a rare earth mineral mine out of his kitchen window. Paul Trotter will watch it slowly creep up to his home, turfing out his family. David and his parents, Peter and Marie Byrne, have already been offered money to sell. David's a fifth-generation Minyip crop farmer in the heart of the Wheat Belt, a small town 3.5 hours northwest of Melbourne.
This is truly prime agricultural land, what we are on here.
Home is where you can hear the birds sing and ride the same tracks your ancestors did.
That's the true meaning of it, really.
But these homes and farms sit atop a deposit of critical minerals and rare earth elements needed to power renewable energy and make household items like batteries, phones and paint. Astron Limited plans to mine more than 1,000 hectares of this land, making it the 4th largest rare earth project in the world outside China.
I try every day, and I try to think of a better future for the kids and another place, but yeah, I can't.
They want to mine on prime agricultural land, and Canberra's not standing in their way. They're fast-tracking it.
President Trump, sir, your message to the people of Australia. Love that.
A day after this handshake, the mine was given major project status by the Australian government and took away any hope these farmers had.
It was gut-wrenching.
Sarah's raising 4 kids on her husband's family farm, where the lemon trees are antiques.
I sort of feel like the government's against us, against farmers at the moment, and we have nothing. No one is helping us.
Digging at the mine is set to start in 2027, and 7,000 tonnes of Aussie earth will be sent to Utah in the United States every year.
They're trying to just pick out all this prime food bowl country and turn it into a mine and give all the money overseas at the cost of the people that have built the country.
Ryan's family found their place here back in 1873. Now he's the Victorian Farmers Federation Grains President.
Australia is giving their lunch money to the school bully, and that school bully is now going and sharing it with the other school bully, and we're left going hungry.
My father fought for this country, and for what? To supply and look after other countries and multinational companies.
We want to stay here. I'm 80 in a couple of months' time. I never dreamt I'd be doing what I'm doing right now.
The worst bit, they can only say no for so long.
They say they can't compulsorily acquire it, but at the end of the day, it becomes a financial transaction. They either lease it or they buy it. So they'll get it one way or the other.
Victorian farmers are now lobbying the state with a petition to change legislation.
Over in WA, farmers have more rights than what we do here in Victoria, so they have the right to say no.
Sarah is passionate about farmers' rights to veto. Her 12-year-old son, Riley, is all the inspiration she needs. He learned to drive a tractor sitting on his pa's lap.
I want to be a farmer. I'd like to take over this farm from my pa.
But if their land is mined, what will Riley be left with? If it's anything like this former Victorian mine site, it's no future.
They're saying it's rehabilitated, but it's not.
The farmers there are really smart, resilient, excellent farmers. and they can't get anything to grow on this land.
Farmers out here say if this is all gone, mind, it ain't coming back. So what do Australians think of a food bowl that produces no food?
Oh, it's absolutely a waste. Like, to turn it into substandard or possibly a wasteland is just an absolute travesty.
We used to just worry about the weather.
Now they must worry about contamination of their water supply and their crops if they're to coexist with the mine until it's ready to take their land too.
The radioactive materials that are being mined, how do we know that's not going to go on the roof and go into our water?
We put 11 questions to Astron, asked for an interview twice, but they refused, saying, "We've considered your request carefully. However, we don't believe the format allows sufficient scope for balanced examination."
Astron have never dug a shovel full of dirt in their life. So that's what we really struggle. How can you tell us you know what you're doing when you've literally never done it?
Astron says some areas of significance won't be mined, like where these bull oak trees stand.
That's a sacred spot, which is fair enough, but I think this little area here where I've brought up our family is pretty sacred too.
From barley and wheat to beans and lentils, these farmers put food in our bowls. But for how much longer?
I think it's the greatest job in the world. I love it. I love every bit of it. But yeah, this part's, yeah, it's wearing us down. Yeah.
We've sent a formal invite to the Prime Minister, and we want him to actually come here and have a look at that deal that he signed at the White House, what it actually means to the people here.
And welcome to the Protagonists. I'm going to play another clip in a second. I wasn't going to, but I need to. I personally regard this as one of the greatest threats to our country. That's just me personally before I get into the editorial. I think it is of such importance that if we don't stop what is about to happen, we will have nothing left of this country to hand to our children, our grandchildren, and their children and grandchildren. And as Stephen says in this video in a second, once it's gone, it's gone. As the annual COP ritual commences with the predictable hypocrisy and nonsense from the polloi, we sit at home reflecting on our Prime Minister Albanese's government's kamikaze policies. Such policies have delivered no emission reductions or climate change, but have resulted instead in totally unnecessary cumulative increases in power cost, devastation of manufacturing, destruction of our countryside, threatening farm production and food security. Oh, we just cannot forget the transfer of wealth to other nations, rich and poor, and they become richer. Does the public see what is so obvious? I'm not so sure as decades of propaganda, what we're taught in schools by those dim-witted teachers. You know, climate change, going to boil the planet, we're going to freeze, boil, we're going to fall off, be hit with Atlas 3I, whatever. It's all going to happen all in one go. But the propaganda has worked so well that polls now show a majority of Australians want more of our politicians to do even more. Of course, these massaged numbers are peddled by the same vested interests that benefit from those policies. The Earth is not going through a climate crisis. It is not going through that crisis. we had a guy on another show today, and he was saying he works for the Weather Bureau, and he says cyclones and monsoons have not increased. But yet we're told that the climate is changing because of fossil fuels, humans polluting the planet, and can't forget the farmers, of course, that their cattle are farting to extremes. It's just terrible. So the Albanese government is now doubling down on its renewable energy projects, silencing our weak opposition parties, and they are weak. Susan Lee, who heads the Conservatives, you are a disgrace. You are a disgrace. Where's the common sense gone? The opposition parties, who are partly responsible for being so weak, they're getting us to this place because they can't argue or prosecute the point. The destruction of coal power generation in favour of renewable energy targets happened on their watch in government. Our talented panel may have some answers on how we fight back. I'll play the clip in a sec. We'll just introduce the guest. And our guests are just brilliant. Ross Johns, President of the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. Ross, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
And then we have also Melinda Richards, an old friend of ours, ex-TNT broadcaster. She has a finger on the pulse, as they would say, and she's very good. She's an Australian business owner, social commentator, and the author of her first book, You Can't Say That. And our final guest is Stephen. He's again another friend of us here at The World Today. Stephen Nowakowski is an award-winning wilderness photographer and conservationist. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mike.
Look, I just want to play, this is just another one of your videos, and I thought about it, I put it in there, I thought, do I play it, don't I play it? I think we should play it, because then we get this really balance of what is happening to Australia.
This is the Kaban Wind Tower Complex, which now covers what was once a thriving and highly biodiverse ecosystem, located on the southern Atherton Tablelands of North Queensland. Just recently, the Kaban Wind Factory has been on-sold by its former owners Neoen, a French company, to Brookfield, a Canadian global asset manager overseeing approximately $1 trillion in assets. The fast-tracking of this industrial-scaled energy transition down the remnant forests of the high elevation ranges of Queensland raises important questions about the future of these valuable intact refugia forests. I decided to visit the base of one wind turbine just recently to see if there really is bird and bat deaths as many claim. The discoveries I made were truly alarming. The harsh reality is I found a little red flying fox bat severely injured with fatal spinal injuries. Wildlife carers retrieved this bat after I discovered it, but it had to be euthanised. How many bats fall to the ground and die a slow death? At this one turbine base that I visited, carcasses lay motionless. A northern free-tailed bat, a white-striped free-tailed bat, a yellow-bellied sheath-tailed bat, and a Pacific swift. The Pacific swift is a migratory bird that we are supposed to protect under international migratory bird agreements, such as the Bond Convention. Wind towers now introduce a new threat for these high elevation flying birds and bats. The Pacific swift, for example, glides at an altitude of 300 to 400 metres. These species have no chance whatsoever. Why should our wildlife have to pay the ultimate price for the ambitions of global giants who owe no allegiance to our country? These chilling incidents reveal the stark reality of mortality from just one turbine during a single inspection. With another 41,000 turbines set to rise across Australia's land and sea, the future for our birds, bats and countless vulnerable and endangered wildlife looks increasingly bleak. Believe it or not, there's been no proper study done ever on impacts to birds and bats in an Australian tropical forest context. More recently, evidence is showing that low-frequency sound is masking the mating calls of koalas and perhaps even all species of amphibians. This comprehensive research is yet to be done by anyone. The death and destruction of critical habitats and the lives they cradle is not climate action, it's plunder. Australia's biodiversity matters. Our wildlife matters. This destruction must stop before it's all gone.
I think that's so powerful. I think the last three videos were so powerful. And thanks to Stephen for two of those. And we do thrash it a lot here. But as I said before, I think we are looking at a catastrophe, if not already. The catastrophe is just around the corner. I'll go through each of these. Ross Johns, why are we destroying our country to save the planet?
I can't tell you why we're doing it. All I know is when I watch those videos of Stephen Nowakowski's, it makes my heart sink. And agriculture is an important industry for not just globally, but also for Australia. For humanity, agriculture is important. And when Australia signed up to the Paris Agreement, we made a commitment not to negatively impact the capacity of our food producing areas. And our government has just completely ignored what they've signed up to. And I think that's a really big negative. And our government's got to have a complete rethink. And we're sort of starting to see the shift now, recognising that agriculture and food production is an important endeavour for humanity. And we should continue on that.
Melinda, why are we destroying our country to save the planet?
Money. It's just money. We're just selling Australia out. The bottom line is that we're doing something absolutely ridiculous. We're taking our cheap energy, our coal, and we're shipping it to China, who is then using lots and lots of energy to build wind turbines and solar panels to then ship it back to Australia to make a profit. And the government's subsidising this. So there are a lot of people in this climate grift, or the renewable grift is what I call it, making a lot of money. And it is also going worldwide because it's a very, very easy way to control the population. So at the end of the day, you're destroying your country for money and for power.
Stephen, why are we destroying our country to save the planet? You've done absolutely magnificent videos. You have alerted the population to the impending disaster, but they keep doing it. Why are we doing it?
Well, I think Melinda hit the nail on the head. This is a huge transfer of wealth. So we're seeing a huge transfer of wealth, but it's also we're seeing a destabilisation of our energy grid, and I'm not too sure what the purpose of that is. Why our decision makers, why our leaders are handing over our energy security to foreign international companies and countries like China. So most of this technology is coming from China. Goldwind, wind turbine, wind tower manufacturers. They also own a lot of the transmission infrastructure in Victoria. All our solar panels are all Chinese made. So our entire energy security is being handed over to a communist nation, and ultimately they will control our energy. And so there's a number of factors. But we can talk more about these, through.
We can. But Ross, we're talking about the environment. We're talking about the effect it has on everyday Australians and the farming sector. I mean, in your lifetime, have you ever seen such an ominous sign of what is about to come?
Oh, no, I've never seen such a disregard for food producing areas and what the farmers do for Australia. Some of these transmission lines that are going to be built are going to destroy the economics of some farming operations. And it's become a very dictatorial process. I think government is now so in bed with multinationals and corporates guaranteeing their profits that they can't stand back objectively and look at what's in Australia's best interests. $7 to $9 trillion is going to be spent on this renewable build, and that's going to come out of future pensions about out of the taxes of the young people who are going to be earning money in Australia for the foreseeable future. And I just think this is a ridiculous thing. Why do we want to destroy one of our most viable export industries? 14% of Australia's export revenue comes from agriculture, and we're going to limit that its potential by building a fast-track renewable bill, which just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
And the latest news is that the Victorian government is going to bulldoze, what was it, I think it's 100 MCGs worth of land in the King Valley in Gippsland to throw in some solar panel farms. Because you talk to the farmers all the time.
Well, can I just touch on that one up there? That's Meadow Creek, and I think that's in one of the most beautiful valleys in Victoria, and they've just fast-tracked the approval of what is a ridiculous solar farm, and I just think that should never, ever be built. And a government who builds things and destroys the natural beauty and the environment should actually be fully accountable for those ridiculous decisions they make. It's not an appropriate decision for Australia. It's not an Australia I want to live in, and it's certainly not an Australia that the King Valley people want to live in. And I think there's going to be continued social disobedience, civil disobedience is coming. And I mean snap ambushes, destruction of equipment. That's already occurred, and we're going to see a greater and greater number of it if government continues to follow this poor fast-track renewable bill.
I mentioned to somebody from the Wimmera, I won't say his name, just a while back, we're chatting, and I said perhaps the farmer's alternative, which does solve many problems. I said, what about the 12 gauge? And I think most politicians would have thought I was talking about a railway line, but we're not. But it's going to get to that stage, isn't it? Because at the moment, the amount of stress and tension, and I can see it on some of those videos that we've played from the farming community. They have they can't plan for the future because you have these monstrosities about to appear everywhere. I mean, some poor bugger's going to have one right in front of his window. What can they do? What can, psychologically, first of all, what should farmers do? Because if you have no hope, you create hope, and sometimes it's not what you want.
What communities have got to do is they've got to talk, and they've got to communicate, and they've got to stand together. There is nothing stronger than a strong rural community, and if they can be united, I'm personally very confident that we can defeat this stupid, ludicrous government policy. We've got to talk to your neighbours, got to find out about their issues. A small minority of farmers are benefiting from some of these wind turbines, but the vast majority of the community will be paying the price of visual amenity loss, noise amenity loss, and wildlife loss. These things are going to kill raptors and species that are protected. It just makes absolutely no sense. The government produced an environmental assessment study for the Warrnambool Energy Park, which is 230 turbines. That is about 14 inches high in volume, and we're supposed to read that and respond in a meaningful way. It's just an AI-generated bullshit EES to try and fast-track a process, and it's just not the right process for Australia. If we're going to build these things, let's do it logically. Let's sit down and talk about it. Let's fully evaluate the negatives and the positives, and talk about it. Not this crap that's going on with the Victorian government and the federal government, and they're both in cahoots. Fast-track renewable bill, we're coming through regardless. That is just the worst possible outcome you could ever imagine for wildlife, for people, for farmers, for agriculture, for rural communities.
Look, Stephen, I'll come back to Melinda in a second. Tell us what happens to the turbines. Farmers put these turbines up. We put the turbines up, for example, the 3400 in central Queensland, which is an enormous amount of metal. So they put these turbines up. Let's say we go 20 years' time. What happens to them?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And no one can really answer that question. It can't be answered because the wind towers there's in terms of decommissioning, we've got no idea what a decommissioning plan is because that is an arrangement between the landowner, the host, and the developer. and that's a commercial in confidence arrangement. So we don't know what a decommissioning plan is. That's a private agreement. And in terms of environmental bonds, there is no such thing as an environmental bond for a renewable energy project in Australia. So coal mines, gold mines, the mining industry have to actually have environmental bonds at the start of construction in case they do go into liquidation, administration or receivership. And there's money put aside to clean up the site. With regards to renewables, there is no environmental bonds at all. So what we're going to end up with ultimately here, particularly in Queensland, are all of our high elevation mountains that have been blasted out by dynamite and left as quarry sites. And then the towers will be left standing and rusting in situ forever because they won't be decommissioned. Because it will actually fall back onto the host, onto the landowner. And by that stage, the landowner's gone or won't have the funds to clean the site up. This is an unmitigated disaster. And Andrew Dyer, the previous infrastructure commissioner, he said very clearly that this is a ad hoc, chaotic rollout. There's going to end up being a duplication of assets, and there will be stranded assets because this is not being done in any way. There is no plan. No one is planning any of this. This is developer driven. So developers come in, they cherry pick the cheapest locations where they want to go, and then the legislation is designed to fast track those developments. And so we're going to end up with a landscape littered with rusting towers as far as the eye can see.
Melinda, as we push the right button here, tell me, because someone's just dropping out, this makes my life more interesting. What can we do? I mean, we can't get rid of Labor for another 3 years. So they're there. The Victorian government's going to be there to, I bet you 10 cents to nothing that the Victorian government will win the next election, not because of the policies, but because the opposition is pathetic. What can we do? I mean, Chris Bowen and Albanese are full on in doing this to start off $1.38 trillion worth of infrastructure just to kick it off. What can we do to negate this or stop it?
Well, we've got to fight, and we are, as a nation, going to have to fight. If we want to save our country, there are two issues that we need to save our country on. The one is digital ID, that's the very first thing. And the second, just as important issue to save Australia is to actually fight this renewable energy grift. And can I just say, Mike, I want to go back to first principles here and say that there is actually no such thing as renewable energy. And I think that's where we've got to start. We've got to start from the start. And we have got to let Australians know what the truth is, what is really happening. And we can't dismiss the egos involved in this industry as well, because you have already had people doubling down. Like you've got the Albaneses, you've got the Twiggy Forrest, you've got the Chris Bowens of the world, you've got all these people involved, the Malcolm Turnbulls making a lot of money, grifting along, and they are going to double down, and they are doubling down. So the more information that comes out against this, the more facts that come out, the more people are awakening. Then what they're doing is they're going to push back even harder, and they're going to have the media on their side. But we must, as a nation, fight, and we have to fight it at the ground level. I mean, if every single person in Australia saw the work that Steve is doing, you will get a movement happening overnight. And I think it's all of us are responsible now to get the information out to everyone as quickly as we can. And I think that we can do it because we did it with The Voice. We know 60%, 70% of Australians, once they saw the truth, once they had the facts in front of them, they will absolutely say no. They will say no, and it must be stopped. If we can't stop this, I totally agree with you, we are going to lose our nation. We're going to lose our energy. We're going to lose our economy. And most importantly, we're going to lose our natural environment. So we are losing everything here. We're not just losing our natural environment, we're losing everything. We already have an energy crisis. That's going to get worse. We already have a cost of living crisis. That's going to get worse. So you see, We all have to fight, and I think we have to figure out a way to get behind a cause and a campaign. I know there's a lot of disparate campaigns going around, but somehow we need to band all of this together because people will push back once they know the truth.
I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know because I think a lot of them have drunk too much Kool-Aid, and I think we are in a spot of bother. Ross, you mentioned before, you said if we keep going the way we are, this is not the Australia that you would want to live in. Do you think that's the aim of the government? They don't care about you. You can go to buggery. We don't give a rat's what you think.
Well, it's a very good question. I can't speak for the government. I can't get into their brain, but they're trying to formulate a new environmental legislation, which I find is going to shortcut a lot of environmental protections. And I don't think that's the right thing for Australia. Murray Watt is going way out on a limb here, and it's a ministerial directive that can approve any of these projects. And what will happen is some of these unique Australian species will be wiped off the map. So how are we protecting the environment when we're wiping out and extincting species? And a couple of them, the southern bent-winged bat in Victoria, highly exposed to the renewable build that's the fast-track renewable build that's going on in Victoria. The Robbins Island, just north of Tasmania, has had a wind development approved there, and that's the pathway for migrating orange-bellied parrots, and that is just totally stupid. Why are we destining to extinction species that are unique to Australia, that Australians should be all very proud of? The Tasmanian government put in place a bounty on thylacines. So this is a government process. Government doesn't get the decisions right all the time. And in fact, quite a lot of the time they get it wrong and they blunder through. They're tied up with multinationals and corporates. They probably, I'm going to use the word corrupt, but there's a relationship between multinationals and corporates and government that's not healthy for Australia and should never actually ever exist.
Absolutely corrupt. I think it is absolutely corrupt. I think we can use these words, and I think we need to start being tougher, and we need to start to really understand the dynamics here, because this environmental legislation has got nothing to do with the environment. This has got something to do with we have to smooth out a pathway to destroy the environment. That's the only reason why it's been called an environmental legislation. I mean, it's so devastating. And it's so emotional. It's very, very hard to even watch and listen today to it without getting anxious and about the whole thing, because we can't give up. But it's hard to find a pathway through on how we're going to collectively get rid of all of these policies. We have to stand up as a nation, and it's going to have to be grassroots.
I don't believe we can. I'm going to be that light at the end of the tunnel is a very fast train coming towards us, not the light at the end of the tunnel. I actually don't think we can do much about it. I think, and this is over a great period of time, in my case 332 years, but if government want to do what they want to do, they're going to do it, and you can't do much about it. Stephen, tell us about
It doesn't mean government's right, though.
No, I totally agree. I think government is going to do what they want to do.
Government can get it wrong, and we all pay the price. Australians pay the price. And,
do you know what? I think at the moment this government and the state governments are getting it wrong 80 to 90% of the time. I don't even think we're getting it right at all in anything, because this country's lurching from one disaster to another, and it's never been so bad. We've never been so under threat. So, I mean, when you say the government can get it wrong, it is getting it wrong and getting it wrong most of the time.
And it's all based on a lie. I mean, I don't know if you all believe in climate change. I think it's overhyped. I think if you look at the oceans, they have not risen. If you look at Kiribati is one that they all moved there, moved away from there because it was being swallowed up. Kiribati is growing in land mass. The same thing with Tuvalu. These places. So the ocean isn't rising to the extreme, or it's not rising full stop. But what they're doing to we won't talk about the global extremes, but we are trying to save the planet. And if you believe in climate change, we have no effect at all, do we, Stephen?
Murray Watt approved a gas project in the northwest of Western Australia to export gas for no royalties for Australia until 2070. Now, if he's fair dinkum on reducing global carbon emissions, we would not be exporting gas. Murray Watt's got to be fully accountable. This guy is out of control. He is just a loose cannon. And somewhere along the line, Australians have got to say, what the heck are you doing, destroying beautiful, wonderful farming land and a unique species in Australia, and approving gas exports into China and Japan? This is just madness. 1 million tonnes of coal per day of coal we export to China to keep their energy prices cheap, and yet we're destroying the Australian environment. Ludicrous. Wrong, wrong, wrong. This guy is just off with the fairies, and it's aided and abetted by Tony Albanese and his merry clowns at the top that are just totally off the rails. They are not right. They're power drunk. They won a great election, and they think they can do anything. That is crap. Australians will hold them accountable.
As Russell Crowe said, Stephen, a conga of stupidity, and it is. These people are just insane. Tell me though, just for example, because your video, I have to say, I'm editing it together, I had to watch that poor flying fox and the look of terror and distress in the eyes of that poor animal. It was terrible. But that's just one. I mean, there's so many other dead animals. Can you tell us what will happen when they really get into this? You know, they raise the top of the Great Dividing Range. What will happen?
Well, it's actually catastrophic. So the mapping that we've just recently done, rainforest reserves, it's actually 31,000. So we've calculated around 31,000 wind towers that are proposed across Australia in the pipeline. That's if they all get approved. Okay, so they're all at different stages of the approval process. The cumulative impact of that is absolutely catastrophic. And not only for birds, but we're talking about mammals, amphibians, and everything else. So when you go under one of these big towers, these towers are around 260 to 300 metres high. The ones at Caban are around the 260 metre mark. They're 5.5 megawatt Vestas nacelle gearboxes. And the low frequency sound is really bad. It is really bad. And I've dealt with communities all across Queensland, and those communities, those landowners that live nearby are suffering very severe health impacts. The impacts on wildlife is an unknown. No one is researching this, but what I do know is that it will devastate wildlife. And a little bit of science is coming in. So Dr. Roger Martin, who's been doing volunteer work for us, he's one of our koala eminent experts in Australia. He's been radio tracking koalas up here in North Queensland, and his early observations are that koalas will not come within 4 kilometres of a wind tower. They can pick up on that low frequency sound. So koalas have got the really big ears and a real big cavity in their skull. And they're very highly adapted to picking up low frequency sound because the male grunts in a very low frequency at night that actually goes around 10 kilometres in distance. So Roger's measured that. This low frequency sound that's coming out of wind towers also can go over to 10 kilometres. He's picked that up. So what we're seeing is that the low frequency masking of there'll be low frequency masking of koala calls, and that's going to be and then we've got things like greater gliders, all your glider species, your possums, amphibians. A lot of frogs use male frogs use low frequency to communicate, to call a mate. And those callings will be masked as well. There's huge impacts, and it's just not the wind towers and the solar panels. It's also all the ancillary infrastructure. There's the substations, the transmission lines. There's a synchronous condensers. All of it, all needs to be connected by new transmission. I've given up trying to calculate how much new transmission is in the pipeline. Chris Bowen went to 2 elections ago, he went to the election saying that we need 28,000 kilometres of new transmission. And at the most recent election, he was saying that we need 5,000 kilometres of new transmission. But I know it's far more than that because he's only calculating the high voltage, the 275 or 500 kV lines. He's not calculating all of the connection lines to all the wind farms, to all the wind towers. So basically, I think it'd be 3 times that, at least 15 to 20,000 kilometres of new transmission lines. And then what we're seeing here is those transmission lines going through some of our most beautiful national parks and state forests. And this government is just hell bent on fast tracking it, and the entire conservation sector is standing back and saying nothing. If this was a coal seam gas proposal or a coal proposal or anything, or what we saw down in New South Wales, the gold mine, these projects get stopped. There's people gluing themselves to streets to try to stop these projects because of impacts on biodiversity. Yet if it's renewable, that's okay. It's okay. We need to do that to save our children's future. And just going back to the EPBC Act, look, I've been campaigning for over a decade to try to get reforms to the EPBC Act to give the legislation teeth so we can actually protect our wild places, our matters of national significance, our matters of national environmental significance. And we couldn't make the government budge on the EPBC reforms. But now all of a sudden, we've got a $1 trillion industry breathing down our back, this wall of infrastructure, and the EPBC Act is now an impediment to that. And now now Murray Watt is rushing it through as fast as possible to facilitate the fast tracking of these renewables. That's what it's all about. And it's the critical mineral mining and rare earth mining. There's a silica mine up here called Diatreme Resources. Guess who the CEO is of that company? It's Wayne Swan. And so Wayne Swan is backing Diatreme Resources to dig up the Cape Flattery silica mines, the Cape Flattery sand dunes for silica for solar production. So that silica will be used for solar production, solar panels. And that particular area is also earmarked as being worthy of World Heritage significance. So with this new EPBC legislation, they'll dismiss the fact that it has high biodiversity and wilderness values, and we'll open it up for critical mineral mining, which is in this instance silica mining for solar panels. Who the CEO is Wayne Swan.
Ross, looking at farmers at the moment, they have issues with them putting up the interconnector. We'll change our mind. We'll put it somewhere else today. We'll do it somewhere else tomorrow. Then we have the solar farms. We've talked about King Valley in Victoria. Then we have the wind turbines all over the shop. Where to from here?
There's no proper planning process. Government hasn't got a proper planning process. They're just bulldozing through using AI-generated reports, and I think they're not considering all the options. I'll give you and I totally support Stephen in this. We've got to protect our natural environment, and Murray Watt is not protecting our natural environment. He's protecting the corporate and multinational interests that are building this fast-track renewable build. I went up to Hay in New South Wales to give a presentation on Plains Wanderer, of all things, and I'll just show you a little picture of a Plains Wanderer. There he is. Now this bird, the highest population in Australia, is right on top of where they've approved a Pottinger wind farm. Now I put some recommendations forward to try and protect not just a unique species, but that Plains Wanderer. And I'll show you again, just for your interest. There he is there. That Plains Wanderer is a unique genus. It's an entire genus, one species, one genus. And we've put at risk a unique Australian wildlife for a fast-track renewable build. This whole process is just total crap. Murray Watt's got to be answerable, and I really will reflect. Graham Richardson, who died on Saturday, was possibly one of the best environmental ministers we have, and Murray Watt will go down as one of the worst. And he is fast-tracking Australian species to extinction, and that is just not right. It's
No,
un-Australian.
it's just the hypocrisy of the left, the hypocrisy of the Greens, the hypocrisy of all these people that talk about the environmental. I mean, you like watch Jane Caro right now arguing with Matt Canavan about the renewable. Oh, we've got to save the environment for our children's future. It's like I just keep flicking it back going, well, we're actually destroying the environment. We are destroying the natural environment. Jump in your four-wheel drive, jump in your big fat four-wheel drive, and maybe go for a drive out there. Maybe go and have a look and see what's actually going on. And I think a lot of these environmental city-based ivory tower elitist activists need to get out and actually take a little selfie next to the wind turbines, next to the dead animals, next to all of the trees that have been locked down, and next to the environmental destruction. Because how can you possibly say that we're saving the environment for our children's future? We're destroying it, and this is the hypocrisy. This is the lie. This lie the left want to perpetuate all the time. It's just, it's so
It's
hard.
crazy stuff. Yeah, absolutely crazy. The Upper Burdekin wind farm up near my place, just to the south here, they found 3 red goshawks. The ecologists found 3 red goshawks on that site. They are the holy grail of raptors in Australia. There's only like 70 breeding pairs left.
Gosh.
They found 3 on the site.
Oh,
And
see,
even that couldn't stop it. There was 12 endangered species on that wind farm site. That's an Andrew Forest. It's an Andrew Forest project, and basically he's bigger than God at the moment. You can't, he's so intertwined with the Federal Labor Party that whatever he wants, he gets.
although hopefully David Crisafulli, the Premier of Queensland, will start actually understanding that, the tide is going to be turning. As more and more people wake up, like he can actually at a state level start to try and put the brakes on some of these things to stop them from starting in the first place. We just cannot have any more. Like 31,000, if that number's right, 31,000 wind turbines in this country, you might as well pack up your cricket bat and ball, pack your bags and go, because there's no country left. There's nothing.
Germany has 30.
Sorry. I was trying to ask you, Melinda, where are the greenies? I mean,
Do you know what it is, though? Do you know what it is? This is the same reason. It's exactly the same reason why the left eat themselves up. Because what they do is they support things that they know nothing about, they double down, and then they've got a safe face. So now what's happening is the Greenies are nowhere because they think, we believe in renewable energy. We've put all of our eggs in the climate change sham basket. And so now they can't back out of that. What are they going to do? Come back out later and go, well, gosh, the top of that mountain's gone. All of our endangered species are now dead. But we believe in climate change. We're going to save the planet. And by the way, we're not going to save the planet. We're not going to get to net zero. Climate change, that humans even cause it, is a fantasy. Net zero is a fantasy. Actually thinking Australia has anything to do with any global weather is a fantasy. So all of these lies are just piling up on each other. So what's the left going to do with that? What are the Greens going to do with that? You see, the left will double down. They will not sit back and go, we were wrong. Even Bill Gates, the guy that is like probably the most evil guy on the planet, he came out the other day and said, actually, you know what? No. We're not going to have this catastrophic climate change. And so even Bill Gates is coming out, but Australia's got to catch up with that because the rest of the world is starting to turn away from net zero.
Okay, one more. Not one more thing. We'll keep going. This is too important. Stephen, they start building these monstrosities, these big windmills. Then we have a bushfire, which sometimes Australia gets. We have this bushfire. What sort of problems because we've talked about this before, but just illuminate us again. What sort of problems will they encounter this time?
Yeah. So first with solar farms, I actually visited a solar farm called the Beryl Solar Farm in New South Wales, and just after construction, a grass fire came through and destroyed some of the panels, and destroyed it to such a point where all the hydraulic rams don't work anymore, so the panels don't rotate with the sun. So the efficiency of that particular solar farm has now been diminished from that grass fire. But in terms of wind towers, the Rural Fire Brigade have made it very clear, I think in Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland, that they will not fly firefighting aircraft anywhere near wind towers if there is a bushfire. It's just too dangerous. You can't fly aircraft in amongst towers that are up to 300 metres high in amongst smoky conditions. But that's not a part of the approval process. That's not considered. So when a wind farm is proposed at state level, the impact on bushfires is not even a consideration, and then at federal level, it's not even a consideration. So this is another unmitigated disaster coming down the line, where we're going to see. And also too, you have to remember, with all these new transmission lines are a big source of fires as well. We saw those big fires in the Blue Mountains, those recent fires in the Blue Mountains. They were started by fallen power lines. And we're going to build, 15,000, 20,000 kilometres of new power lines.
And Ross, you're involved, and you with the CFA. You talk to the CFA,
Yep.
you do all sorts of things. They've been very, very critical of the Victorian government.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us just to bring us up to speed, what the Victorian government are doing to, one, the CFA, and two, the farming community, which is connected to the CFA.
They've increased the levy on farming land 420% higher than the levy on metropolitan Melbourne. It is just a ridiculous levy, and CFA members who have been volunteering their time to fight bush and scrub fires in Victoria have really taken great offence to this very poorly planned Allen government tax. It's almost the same as the tax on unrealised gains that I noticed Jim Chambers actually dropped, which I must say, you can't tax income that you haven't earned. But where I was going to go was bushfires in Australia are a very, very real issue. One wind turbine in 1750 burns every year. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If we've got 30,000 of these things, we'll have them burning every week. But not only that, some of these wind turbines, the propellers have dropped off. Some of them, the blades have flown off. Down in the Western Victoria, where they've got the Golden Plains wind farm, components of the wind blade have become detached and moved 750 metres into neighbours' property, which is not associated with the wind farm. These are contaminants in food production. So if we're trying to produce clean, green food, and we've got contamination flying over the land into neighbours' property, this is just completely unacceptable. So I think what we've got to get back to, a fast-track renewable process for renewable energy is not a proper process. A proper process is a thoughtful process where all these issues are considered and the community interests in rural and regional Australia is fully considered, and we work out how we can produce energy and provide energy to our pensioners and wage earners in Melbourne at a reasonable price.
And Melinda, the remedy is to vote them out next election, but there's still some years to go before we can do that. The damage they will do, the federal government will do, even the state governments, they have an election next year, and I think they'll get in because the opposition is so pathetic. Queensland, it's doing it a bit differently because at least you have a Conservative government. But at the end of the day, can you tell me the difference between Conservatives and the Labor government at the moment? I can't see much at all. And if you look at
two heads of the same snake, I'm afraid. I see. Yeah, two heads of the same snake. I mean, it's really unfortunate that both the Conservative and the Labor Party, the Conservatives and the left-wing parties in Australia have both have had a hand over the years because this issue has been trendy cool, because we've bought into, as a nation, over the last 30 years, we've bought into this climate grift. And, I bought into it too. Where, 35 years ago, I believed it as well. But once you get to a certain age, you realise that it's wrong. And also, I think enough scientists now are standing up, and there's enough information to show us that it's wrong. I don't want to lose hope, though. I hear what you're saying, Mike. I don't know that you're right. I mean, is it possible to turn around? But I really do believe that if you see the polls when people like the Nationals get up and say, we're abandoning it, when you see David Crucifoli, if he stands up and says, as a state government, we're abandoning net zero, if you see local governments standing up and getting on the side of their local communities and their farmers, if you start to see the momentum coming out in polling and you start to see that really awakening, I suppose, with most people, then you'll probably see some turnaround, because the Labor Party may feel like this is an election winner. I think that if the Liberal Party stood up tomorrow and said that they were abandoning net zero, I believe that they would win the next federal election. And I think then, because Labor want to win the next federal election, they may abandon it eventually as well, because power is more important to them than anything. So there might be some hope. I know that you're talking about the train, Mike, but, I'd like to think that we can maybe put the brakes on that train halfway through the tunnel.
I don't know.
Give
I
up
like
hope.
the optimism. I like the optimism. I've got to ask Stephen this as we run out of time. Stephen, have we reached the tipping point, or are we far away from reaching the tipping point? And what happens then?
Yeah, I think I've always said there's going to be tipping points. It's either going to be the cost of electricity, there's going to be a grid failure, so widespread blackouts, or people will become aware that it's not clean, nor green, nor cheap. And I believe Melinda, but it's just not. I don't think just a political party saying they're going to drop net zero and we're going to get flocks of voters coming your way. There has to be education. There has to be some way that we can cut through to those inner city voters that this is neither clean, nor green, nor cheap, and we're going to get we're losing grid stability. We're handing out over our energy security. We need to educate people. And the forces against us are so strong. Climate 200, Boundless Earth, the Sunrise Project, $122 million was spent last year by those three organisations to convince voters that climate change is going to kill our children. So we need to unify, and we need to fight back.
Look, I think the biggest one, and I think the one that you touched upon that I think will have the biggest impact, is absolutely the hip pocket. I do believe that once Australians start to have to put in payment plans to pay their electricity bill, they're going to have enough. The hip pocket will probably be the pointy end of the arrow. People have to be able to afford to live. At the end of the day, this is going to be about survival. If we go through rolling blackouts, if we can't afford to pay our electricity bills, if businesses can't afford to keep staff on because they're too busy trying to deal with inflation and deal with energy costs, because some businesses in Australia really, it's a very, very large chunk. Once we start to see the economy, hitting people at a very individual and an emotional level in that hip pocket, that might give us some hope as well. And you know what? I know this sounds awful, but to save our country, maybe we need that hip pocket to happen sooner rather than later, to jolt people out of the stupor that they're in over this, or so we can actually force some home truths down to get that mass awareness.
Yeah, but it's not just and I understand what you're saying, but if you look at farming, for example, anybody on the land it's not their fault at any stage, they're going to be carrying a lot of that burden. And I think why should we penalise the farming community for a decision made by the government that has been voted in?
Well, I think the farming community are already being penalised, and I think the farming community is seeing their energy costs going up. You know, they've got to be the pointy end of the arrow as well. If we can't get our farmers, I mean, they've been very, very good in the UK. They've been able to collect themselves together. I mean, it would be great to see the farming community collect themselves together here as well, and Australians will get behind them. We have to get behind the farmers, but the energy costs and having hip pocket sort of penalties for people, when they really see that and feel it, will that give us hope? I mean, I guess that's just the question. Will that be the thing that tips us to stop that tipping point going over the edge?
Ross?
Farmers tell me that they farmed the land for many generations and they feel really, really connected to that. They're the person that the destruction of the farm has occurred on their watch. They feel very committed to their ancestors and to future generations. Why doesn't our government feel committed to the future generations of Australians? We want a better place. We don't want a worse place. And if I were to really think about how we can bring political change, I think cold showers in Kew and Canberra, and if we had them for consecutive days, would definitely bring about political change. And I think the way we're going with an unstable grid, that's exactly what we're going to have. I reckon the political appetite will change if they've had a third day of cold showers to go to work.
I'm just thinking, though, just before I've got a final question for everybody, but I'm just thinking, though, if you look at South Australia, I think around Gawler, they have a battery. And this battery will power, I think, 37,000 homes or whatever, and it will last about 15 minutes. But the government that brought it in, they were returned. So when you're talking about the people having those cold showers, if you look at the spin from the government, Melinda, what would the spin be?
Oh, look, I just don't even know. I mean, I can't even answer that question. You know, the spin, there's the lies upon lies upon lies. I mean, spin will always be that we're saving the planet and we'll get there and this is for you and your future kids and it's the naming and shaming. I mean, I just can't even. There's so much of it. It's like, what next? It's for me. It's the lies just keep getting more elaborate. You know.
You've seen a lot of this, the smoke and mirrors and the spin from government. As the power grid fails, by the way, when they put in and I could be wrong here, but I believe I am right because sometimes I'm wrong. At the front of a house, you got those power poles and loops the cable, the next one. Well, because of the green energy being denser, you have to have another pole in between those poles. So what we are doing, we're getting these very tall picket fences. That's not so good. But back to the what Ross said and what Melinda has been saying, Stephen, what would the spin be, and how could that be justified? Because you've seen what happens to the environment at the moment. You've seen what happens in South Australia. They keep getting voted back in. What would it take to shake them to an almighty reckoning with reality?
Yeah, good question. I think, like you said, a few cold showers every morning will wake them up.
Yeah, but
the thing but what they need to do is cut the interconnector, and then they'll quickly realise that they aren't isolated. They can't run their state on renewable energy. They need that interconnector to Victoria and New South Wales to back that system up. And they also do have the highest power prices in Australia. Yeah, so, yeah.
I just want to know.
Emission. I'm ready. Let's get a team.
Out with the sticks. We could rub some sticks together for fire. And Ross,
Sorry, Mike. Could I make an observation? Professor Bruce Mountain, who's an electrical economist, and I know him very, very well, says we do not need to build a large-scale network in Australia. The cost of doing so is just so astronomical that the bills and electricity bills will rise so strongly that people will actually go off the grid. So you'll have more and more people with home batteries and solar and just do their own thing. So we're building a a fully integrated national grid that potentially in time will actually be obsolete.
Yes.
And I just don't know why the government's not listening to that. I suspect it's because of their connections to these multinationals and corporates who are funding this large scale network and gaining profits. And the profits are coming out of ordinary Australians paying their energy bills and their taxes. So the government's guaranteeing these companies a return. This is just not right. In 10 years' time, we might have some new technology, which means that this large grid that is being constructed will be completely obsolete. And I think that's a real tragedy. And we should be thinking forward about what's in Australia's best interest. We should be planning to have a better country. We should be planning to make energy and our lifestyles better in Australia. We should be building and protecting our natural beauty and our very rare and unique species in Australia. And all those things are being disregarded by this current foolhardy government who's besotted by these multinationals and billionaires. And I think they've been bought off. Basically, they've been bought off. It's like we're operating in an African republic. I can't believe it.
You're right, John Ross. So what's happening is that more and more people are getting, home batteries and so forth, and utilising the grid less. But we're building up the grid with thousands of kilometres of new transmission, and the cost of that is being borne by businesses that will just cannot survive. So there's a diminishing resource base or diminishing base of actual electricity payers paying for an expansion of the grid. Just nothing makes sense.
Every single thing about this is stupid. It's just peak idiocy. That's just every single thing we've talked about today builds the cake of idiocy on all of it. And it's illogical, it's destructive, it's heartbreaking, and it's idiotic. There's nothing else.
We have to wrap this up. I'm so sorry about this. But Ross, I'm going to just point out a couple of things. First of all, Victoria's got the native title running amok at the moment. So if you're a farmer, you've got to watch what's happening because they can take your land off you. They say they can't, but they can. We have the interconnector, the solar farms, the wind turbines. If you were you are a farmer, but what hope is there, one, for the country? Can it be fixed? And for the farmer, realistically, can they fix it?
I live in great hope and great confidence that Australians will make the right decision in the end. And I think we've seen many examples of that over time. And a government that's gone too far in their relationship with multinationals and corporates will be pulled up. It's only a matter of time. Right now, they're in this really big honeymoon period where they think that they've got the electorate in the palm of their hand, but that can turn on a dime. Right now, the taxpayers of Australia, which are predominantly working people that go to work every week to make money, the government takes those taxes and passes them directly off to global multinationals and corporates to build what is a potentially obsolete system. But not only that, our government is also passing our taxes off to people to use energy, like Alcoa and the copper smelter in Mount Isa. So they're subsidising heavy industry. We've got a taxpayer base in Australia that it's on a hiding to absolute oblivion with this poorly planned energy process in Australia. The integrated system plan, which has been predominantly Chris Bowen's making, is the basis of taxpayer theft. They're thieving money out of taxpayers' pockets and passing it off to global multinationals and corporates. It's just wrong on so many levels. Farmers will not stand for this poor process, this poor government approach, and I think we're going to see a lot more opposition and civil disobedience in New South Wales, in Queensland. If a bunch of tie-dyed hippies can stop a dam in the Franklin River, a bunch of farmers can definitely stop anything in rural Victoria.
I've never seen the Prime Minister's BMW move so fast in Ballarat with those. It was like Mad Max. Couldn't believe
Yes.
It was a great sight, let me tell you. And finally, this is the and you can add to this, by the way. Ross, is it a Is the light at the tunnel a train coming towards us at great knots, or is it hope?
Oh no, I'm very confident that Australians will make the right decision, and to see the extinction of unique Australian species, I think the young people want to live in a country where we actually protect those things and protect our environment. And it's not going to come at the cost of our unique Australian wildlife. The thylacine went by the way by a poor government decision, and no one held them accountable at the time. And the young Australians, the university-educated Australians, will actually work out that this is not in the best interests of Australia, and they will say, "Hang on a minute, this is our future that you're destroying." So I think young people at university learning about what the world's made up of and how it works will actually say, "Well, hang on a minute, we can't destroy the Australian environment and food production and have no net effect on global climate." It just is crazy. If our government really wants to reduce carbon emissions, they should ban coal and gas exports tomorrow. And that would be 10 to 12, 15 times the reduction in carbon emissions that we have by building this fast-track renewable process, extincting species in Australia.
But China needs that coal to build the wind turbines, so we can't stop the coal because otherwise they have no energy to build the wind turbines. That's how stupid it all is.
Melinda, I have to ask you, and you can add to it too, light at the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel, or is it that Casey Jones steaming in a roll and very quickly coming towards us?
I don't know. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. I think the train's coming through the tunnel and somehow...
No, you can't be in the middle. Come on.
Somehow we got to put the brakes on the train in the middle of the tunnel, and somehow we're going to stop it. It's going to screech to a halt just before it goes over the cliff, and we're all going to run out and go, "See, we nearly destroyed our country, but guess what? We came and saved it and stopped the train." I have to think that because I love my country and I love the beautiful natural environment that Australia is. I love our wildlife. I love our way of life. And we don't have a choice. I think if we just gave up, we're not leaving the country in the place that we arrived, and this generation will be the generation that's known, my generation, that will be the one that is known for the generation that destroyed the place and made it unlivable. I just can't live with that. I have to keep fighting.
Okay, Stephen, it's no longer Casey Jones steaming and a rolling. It's a bullet train coming towards us, and the tunnel is only 200 metres long. So you have to act quickly. Light at the end of the tunnel, or is it that train and is it about to run over us?
Well, I think the train's going to run over us. I think what keeps me up at night is the fact that I can't see an end point at the moment. These projects are being fast-tracked so fast that we're going to lose a lot of country if they actually get built. And I can really confidently say that in 20 years' time, we will look back at this moment in history and go, "What the hell were we thinking? What a crazy moment in history where we let our elected leaders just run roughshod over our natural environment and just let these projects get fast-tracked." So my job in our organisation is really to try to stop these projects. It's like putting out bushfires. You've got to try to put out all these projects and try to stop them, mitigate the damage as much as we can until Australians wake up, and they will wake up. But I don't know if that's going to be in next election or the election after. I don't know. But I think people are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. People are starting to... They're seeing it through their electricity bills. They're seeing it, through the destruction of wildlife and our wild areas. And so we've just got to keep fighting, unite, and I think Australians will wake up at some point very soon.
Yeah, I don't know. A guy that used to work with us, which Melinda was familiar with, is Savori Morich, and he and I, we were the pessimist or the realist, I think. And I think once the damage has been done, there's no coming back. I think we are in deep trouble. I think the country It has changed. It has changed considerably. We have the support of the voters, which is very scary. It shows you that, I mean, if you go back a couple of years ago, the majority of Australians took that thing in their arms. It was going to make me feel better. And look at the results from that. So if they were to do that to their own bodies, I know the fear of death was an incentive, but what chance do we have looking at the environment? It's less invasive, or so they think, for their own personal beings. And I think it happens in the bush, government must know what they're doing. And I think that sort of attitude and apathy, I think, is going to be the killer of this country. And I am very, very scared. Your videos, by the way, Stephen, big pat on the back, and we will do whatever we can to illuminate the problem, because you are, I have to say, we all agree that you are a magnificent person, and thank you for your time. This has just been truly a magnificent panel guest. Ross, Melinda and Stephen, thank you so much for your time. Tomorrow we'll have another one. It may go a bit longer than normal, but who cares? Thank you so much to our audience. Thank you so much to Jen for producing it, Cam for helping, and everybody else, my wife for nagging me. Can't forget that bit. Thank you so much. This is The Protagonists, and this is The World Today.
With your help, we can continue to fight for freedom, reach new audiences, and bring important information to the public free of charge. This is not possible without your generosity. Join our quest for the truth and our freedom, and donate today, telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.